Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today, I want to tell a little story. I want to talk about how the Supreme Court just overturned the conviction of a gentleman from Tennessee. His name is William Dale Wooden, and he had been convicted of being a felon in charge of a firearm, and he got a 16-year sentence for that. Well, the Supreme Court just overturned it. And I want to tell this story today because it kind of is an illustration in my mind of how far the government goes to make examples out of people over gun crimes. Not even violent gun crimes, just violating their rules about who can own what and when and where, all that crap. And how they were totally unjust in doing it. They even went above and beyond the pale in trying to make an example of him. And the Supreme Court actually smacked their hands and told them no, that you can't do this. The case I'm talking about, like I said, is the William Wooden guy. Now, he got convicted of 16 years for being a felon in possession of a firearm. Now, you might be thinking to yourself right now, well, he must be a really bad guy. He must be out there shooting at cops and doing all these other things, raping puppies and eating babies or something. So he must be a super bad guy. Well, there's no indication that he's really that bad of a guy. I mean, there's no indication that he's going to be nominated for sainthood anytime soon, but no indication that he's horrible. What his record consists of, as far as I can tell, and it's what I've seen from other people, is he had a couple of minor charges as a younger person, mostly fighting, grew up in a poor neighborhood on the streets. And the only serious crime he's ever committed and been charged with was burglary. Back in the day, I believe it was 1997, if I check my notes here, he and some friends robbed a storage unit. They broke into one of those storage unit buildings, and it had 10 units in it, and the only thing blocking you from getting in them was drywall. So they pulled down the drywall, and they had access to 10 units because they broke all the drywall out. And they stole from 10 different units. Not everything in them, I assume. Just, if there was something good in a unit, they took it. But they rifled through 10 units. That doesn't even mean they took something from all of them. They just rifled through 10 of them and took what they wanted. Well, not being master criminals, they were quickly caught. They were relatively young, I do believe, at the time. And he pleaded guilty to the burglary of these 10 units. So I guess he was sentenced for that. I'm not really sure what the sentencing was for that. But then flash forward, I believe it's like 15 to 18 years to 2015. An undercover police officer in plain clothes with no warrant came to his home looking for someone else, but found him. I don't know if he went to the wrong home or he thought they might be associates or whatever, but he went looking for a different person, went to this guy's house, knew this guy was a felon after he ran his information, apparently came in his home without being asked, forced his way in, and saw that he had a rifle in his house, in his home, and found out he was a felon and said, oh, you're a felon in possession of a rifle right here. This is I'm trying to justify why I pushed my way into the wrong person's home, in my opinion, as far as the police officer goes, because he's in his head like, oh, crap, I could be in trouble. I caught you as a crime here, so I'm going to arrest you. Well, they arrested him. They charged him. The state dropped the charges because they said, didn't identify yourself as a police officer, didn't have probable cause, didn't have a warrant, didn't have a reasonable suspicion, barged into a home without permission, just a plethora of bad things he did, so they threw out the charges. Well, the U.S. government was like, no, we can't have people questioning whether they can get away with being a prohibited person and actually owning a firearm, especially not a rifle. And like I said, it's a rifle. It's not like this guy has a Glock stuck in his pants. Well, he might have, I don't know, but that's not what he was charged with. He was charged with possession of a rifle. That's something the government can't have. They can't have people that can be able to fight back if something bad ever happens. So they decided they're going to make an example of him. So they took up the charges. And not only did they take up the charges of being a felon in possession of a firearm, which would have probably gotten him between 1 year and 18 months, probably time served in a suspended sentence and probation. Because here's the thing, he had not had the only really serious charge he ever had was the burglary. And he hasn't had anything since then that was notable. Nothing that was in any way indicative that he was a career criminal or anything like that. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying if he was good at it because he didn't get arrested again. So they kind of, took all this together and they said, well, you know what? We still can't have him flaunting in our face that he got away with owning a rifle when he's one of the people we've said can't have rifles. So they decide they're going to make an example of him. So even though he's only got one serious charge, they're like, well, he stole from 10 units. Technically, that's 10 counts of burglary, even though it was all at the exact same time. Or they violated 10 units. They broke into 10 units when they ripped the wall down. So this is 10 counts. And because there's this thing called the Armed Career Criminal Act, which I never saw anything about them actually being armed during the felony they committed. So I don't know how it would apply, period, since it's the Armed Career Criminal Act. If they had committed 3 felonies in possession of a firearm and then got caught with a firearm, they could get 15 years minimum. And he ended up getting 16 years because they said, well, every one of those units counts as a separate felony, which it has never been that way in the state of anywhere or in any law. You are not considered a career criminal if you go to a parking lot. Let's say you're a teenager and you go around checking doors on cars and you find 6 of them that are unlocked and you take something out of them and then a cop has seen you and he catches you. Well, you don't have 6 felony convictions on your record. You have 1 felony conviction for 6 counts, possibly. Same thing with this guy. But they decided we're going to count that as 10 felonies. I guess 10 armed felonies, even though there was no evidence that he was armed when it happened. And say, you're getting the maximum. You're getting the minimum plus some. You're getting 16 years. Well, the Supreme Court today slapped that down. Said, no, this is not right. This is overreaching on the part of the government and the prosecutors. Now, the only person that dissented, every justice voted unanimously to overturn his sentence, but the only one that objected and just voted against it on a technicality was, of course, the government can do no wrong, Gorsuch. So Gorsuch voted to where saying, the government had every right to do that, but they did it in the wrong way, so we're going to overthrow it. But like I said, unanimously threw it out. So I think there's 2 lessons here to be learned. One, the federal government is way too overzealous with their gun laws. They want to make examples out of people. They do not care if they ruin someone's life as long as they can keep other people afraid. Oh, I don't know if I can own a gun because I've done stuff in my past. Oh, am I prohibited? That kind of thing. And I'm a firm believer felons, if they're out of prison, and especially someone who's been out of prison who's been between offenses, and there was really no offense now even other than being in possession of a firearm, they should definitely be allowed to own a firearm. If you've gone 18 years since your last crime and you've committed no crimes, definitely should be allowed to own a firearm. I think if they let you out of prison, if you're safe enough to be let out into society, well, then you're safe enough to enjoy all your rights. That's my opinion. But even in this case where he was prohibited, the Supreme Court said this is overreach by the government, which to me shows me that they don't have as big a hard-on for guns or being anti-gun as the federal government does. So it was kind of refreshing to see them actually slap this down, because I actually thought they would just say, well, yeah, he's prohibited and he did these bad things, so the government has a right to strip him of his rights and put him in jail for as long as they want. Because we've had people on the Supreme Court that would say that. So it was kind of refreshing to see that they unanimously overturned this, said that they grossly misused that law. I don't like that law even because it doesn't allow for any variance. It's one of those, no tolerance kind of laws. Don't like it. So this was just kind of a heartening story. Not heartening that the guy was a criminal and then he was in possession of a firearm, but the fact that when the federal government got their feathers in a ruffle because someone dared to disobey them, that they decided that they were going to not only convict him, but trump up the charges and convict him. The Supreme Court was there and slapped him down. To me, that's a little glimmer of hope and a little glimmer of light right now as we're fighting for a lot of our rights, especially in my state. So I just wanted to kind of share that story with people and let them know I think there's some bad things happening and there's some bad things coming, but I do believe we see a light at the end of the tunnel, and I think we're approaching that light pretty quickly. All right, everybody, I spent way more time telling you that than I thought I would, but now I'm out of time. So I want to say thanks for coming. I hope I see you all again tomorrow. Until then, remember, always carry, unless you're a felon, and then I think you should be allowed to, but remember, if you do, the government might try to make an example out of you too. But now they're actually less likely to get away with it because of the Supreme Court precedents. So I just want to say to everybody, like I said, remember, always carry unless you've had a conviction, wink, wink, and stay safe until I see you again. I am a grown-ass man.